Okay. So recording has started. 10 seconds of silence, and then this will fucking record. It fucking will. Gabrielle, third time is a charm. This, listeners, you have no idea how hard we have tried to record this episode, but this is gonna do it. There's no way that this one isn't gonna work.
It has to. I don't know why there have been so many roadblocks from the universe for us to speak, but
Yeah.
fuck that shit.
Fuck that shit. Here we are. So we started, thank God it happened at the beginning this time, at least.
Yes.
So we had started to talk. You were introducing yourself, but first let's pull that card from that beautiful Oracle deck that you were sharing with us. The Wild Rose. Do it your way. Embrace your uniqueness. Untamed. Absolutely. This is the frame for our conversation today.
We love it. And we, before we were rudely cut off before, this is the deck in case anybody wants to see it. It looks, I don't know, the light is weird in
Yeah,
here, but it
there you
looks
go.
like this. It's called The Rose Oracle by Rebecca Campbell.
Beautiful.
Her decks are stunning, and this deck never steers me wrong. So we're doing it our way.
We're doing it. Yes, we are. Come hell or high water or Mercury retrograde. Well, you want to introduce yourself to folks?
Yes. I'm laughing because when I was doing that before, I heard you and you were like, oh no. And I was like, oh wow, she really doesn't like what I have to say
Oh,
right
you
now.
didn't know you were cut off? Oh, that's
Yes.
wild. Oh my God. That's funny.
Anyway, I'm Gabrielle. I am a clinical social worker. I live in Sarasota, Florida, but I spent most of my life in Denver, Colorado, and that is where my group practice was. I had a group practice that was primarily serving the Medicare and Medicaid community. And because of that, there was such a huge need. We grew very quickly. I scaled it to 15 people, seven figures, and I was extremely burnt out. So I sold my practice in 2021, and now I do a ton of things. I've coached for the Group Practice Exchange, I've coached for the SBA, I do business coaching and consulting with group practice owners and therapists on how to scale, how to prepare to sell, how to add income streams. I also run retreats based around nervous system regulation and burnout prevention, and I integrate sound healing and intuitive readings into those too.
Yep. Yeah, we can't just do one thing.
No.
Yeah. I think that was probably one of the biggest reasons I got burnt out as a practice owner. I think if I would have just been a practice owner, I would have been more successful at sustaining it.
I think so too. I think that, I mean, the people management sucked a lot, but it also
Yeah.
was like I didn't have enough time
Yeah.
to do all these other things that I really wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of other things we wanted to do, we came up with a brilliant idea for a conversation today around the group practice stuff. And because we started talking about like what's been going on in the world and like how do you use your platform to essentially speak for justice and righteousness and whatnot. And we were like, ooh, what if we talk about how the parallels of the political divide that has been started, I mean, not started, but like exacerbated by social media,
Hmm.
and how that's exactly what we're seeing in the group practice realm right now.
Juicy.
Juicy. Where should we start? What are you seeing
That's,
out there?
oh, I'm seeing a lot of righteousness and negativity and a lot of like this way or the highway. This is the only thing. A lot of, and I kind of talked about this before we started recording, of like saying things are unethical, like butting in to a thread on Facebook where a person made one comment and calling people unethical or saying you're wrong or it should be like this, like not using her critical thinking skills, which apparently some people think they are, but they're not.
Yes, yes. And let's dig into the psychology of that for a moment because I find that really interesting. Like, I saw a video on probably on Instagram last week that was like, if social media comments happened in real life, and this person was like, "Oh my God, it's so hot outside." And then the person like walked up and was like, actually, it's only 69 degrees. It is not boiling. And it was like basically exactly what you're saying, like this
Mhm.
righteousness, this like black and white, like this is right and this is wrong. Why does that happen on social media when it doesn't happen in real life in the same way?
Mm.
What do you
That
think?
video, I haven't seen that video, but I've seen something like similar, and it's so true because I wouldn't say things, even myself, sometimes the things that I say on social media, I'm like, I don't know if I would say that in real life. I don't think I'm being
Hmm.
rude, but I'm just being honest.
Hmm. Hmm.
And and it's true. Like the way that we engage with each other online is not the same way that we would engage in person. And it's also, this kind of goes along with it, but it also makes me think of like, it's kind of a mind fuck sometimes. Like sometimes I'm trying to think of how I can say this because the situation I'm thinking of, there's an NDA involved, so I can't say like a
Yeah,
ton of
yeah,
details,
yeah.
but um, like things that I thought were happening or that I had a conversation about offline that
Hmm.
I think something is going a certain way, and then I see online that person post and it's something else completely is happening, and it's like I shouldn't even know
Mm.
about that. Like I don't even want to know about that because now I'm spiraling. And
Hmm.
I think that's kind of a part of it too, is it's like this double life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. So there's a lack of integration, and what comes up for me is a concern about integrity.
Hmm.
And it's interesting to me. I always walk around the world assuming that everybody else values the same things that I do.
Yeah, yep.
What a ding dong I am. How naive. But I find integrity. I remember, this is a funny story. When I was in my first job out of social work school, um, I'll just go right there and say the whole thing because everybody knows now. I cheated on my husband and he knows we're polyamorous now. I cheated because I was fucking poly and I didn't know
Hmm.
it. And once I
Hmm.
figured out I was polyamorous, I was like, oh, I don't like this can be ethical. So I had cheated on my husband and I was so mad at the guy. And I remember being at work and talking to my supervisor. And I was like, obviously, I couldn't tell her what was going on in my life, but I was just like, I am having issues with somebody and I just want to slash his tires. And it makes me mad that I can't do that because I'm a social worker. And she was like, I mean, I wouldn't do that anyway, even if you were not a social worker. But there
Hmm.
was something about becoming a therapist that made me immediately hold my behavior to a higher standard.
Yes.
Like, of course, I was actually, I had a lot of breakdowns about being a cheater. But right, like I automatically was like, there are these things that I can't do and I can't get away with anymore because I'm a therapist now. But I have realized other people don't have that same scrutiny for themselves.
Hmm.
And I guess I'm curious about that.
I thank you for sharing that story, by the way.
You're welcome.
And it's a good one.
Right? We keep it real here. We really do.
Which I love.
Yeah.
And I have the same issue with this integrity piece. And I kind of wondered, I've recently had this realization where I was like, is it because I'm neurodivergent? Is that part of it? I don't know. But I had the actual realization, which like seems so stupid and like duh, but like I remember like maybe 2 years ago in therapy, I was like, people are in the gray area. And I'm like, I
Mm,
have a hard time with that sometimes because I'm like, if you preach and you say this and like you stand on this, but then you do
mm-hmm.
something over here that doesn't match with that, I like my brain has such a hard time like putting those two things together, even though I'm like putting it into my head that it's like we're people. We are nuanced. We make mistakes. We say things we don't mean, but like it seems like that gap is getting bigger and bigger somehow. And I also have a very hard time with that.
Well, and I think like if we bring the practice, like group practice situation into this, there are there are levels of that, right? There's
Hmm.
levels of integration and um there's a difference between how we present ourselves in the world and how we are in real life. This podcast is a great example, right? People think that they know me and then they're very disappointed when I expect reciprocity in relationship.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's been funny that like, wait, you have feelings and thoughts and needs
Yeah.
that you're not just gonna like tell me and then I get to like say whatever I want about it. Um, and the way that this manifests in group practice is like the whole point of a practice, you have to sell it, right? You have to create a brand, you have to sell your brand, and there's a certain amount of performance that goes along with that,
Hmm.
which that doesn't mean you're out of integrity, right? It just means that what you're posting online is not the nitty-gritty details of what's going on behind the scenes. I think that's different than like really being
Yes.
out of integrity. And at the same time, I think people who work at group practices are wanting to hold, sometimes, I don't know, but wanting to hold the group practice owner in this sort of elevated space of, well, you're supposed to be all of this because you say that you're all of this on social media.
Hmm.
I don't know. I just feel like employees are super disappointed in their bosses right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's warranted, and a lot of times it's not.
I think my employees were very disappointed in me. Actually, maybe not all of them because some I still talk to and they are okay with it. But I do think one in particular was very disappointed, and possibly a few more when I sold my practice. And I think that that's part of like this conversation is the nuance is like
Right,
I couldn't talk about it
right,
because of that's just how it is. Like I can't tell you I'm thinking about selling
right,
because you're either going to jump ship or you're going to get all worked up and then what if it didn't happen? And like
right.
there's so much stuff that goes on in the background of being a group practice owner and I felt like it was my job to distill that to my employees.
Yes.
And I think that they maybe did think that that was not me being like my most authentic self, but it was just me protecting them and like that difference in role. Not necessarily like authoritative, but like you
Yeah.
don't need to know why the claims are being denied or whatever. And it's fucking stressing me out, but I'm not going to put that on you. That's my job.
Right.
And I think that because of that, like my employees, like I'm thinking of the ones who were maybe disappointed in me, had like this different viewpoint of what actually it was like. And now she has her own
Yeah.
group practice, so maybe she knows better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and this brings up an idea that has come up a couple times in conversations that I've had, like the difference between transparency and clarity.
Yeah. Yes.
Because when employees say they want transparency, I think they're actually asking for clarity instead, because transparency is basically you telling them every single thing that's going on in the practice. And
Mm-hmm.
one, that's not appropriate because it's not their job to hold it. And
Mm-hmm.
two, like you said, it also just it creates a really unstable holding environment for
Mm-hmm.
employees. And of course, employees are going to have reactions to that stuff. Like part of holding the practice is holding the risk
Yeah.
and not having, not having employees necessarily feel all the ups and downs that are going on. And if that, like, that would be one thing I really want employees to digest and like em- understand in a more embodied way that the lack of transparency doesn't have to come with a lack of clarity. We
Mm-hmm.
can have clarity, excuse me, but transparency isn't. It's that it this I wish I need a better metaphor for this, but I keep going back to the parent-child metaphor.
Mm.
But I talk with other practice owners about this when they're like, "Oh, well my staff say they want XYZ." And I'm like, Well, if your kid said that they wanted cookies for dinner every night, would you give them cookies?
Right.
You know, and I'd like, please, if somebody has a better metaphor for this, give it to me because
Yeah.
I really am, every time I say this, I'm not meaning to infantilize or minimize the experience of employees. But that's just the only way I can kind of think of how the dynamic works.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good metaphor. And somebody in my group posted a couple months ago now, but I still think about it. And this perfect example of this, I think she only had one employee or maybe just like a few, newer practice owner. And she was like, well, this employee wanted this, so I gave her that. And then she
Yeah.
wanted this office and she wanted me to furnish it, so I did that. And now she's
Right.
not using the office and I'm really upset about it. And she's asking me for a 75% split instead of 65. And I'm like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
you have to say no. Like, that's just not how this works. And like, not
Right.
to, again, like, this is delicate, right? Like, not to say that employees are not worth that or you can't ask for what you're wanting, but there has to be a balance because if we gave you everything you wanted, then there would be no practice and you would have no job. So,
Right. And what I hope we can do in this space is dream up different ways of getting employees what they, I guess, the core of what they're asking for, right? Because
yeah.
when employees say they want more money, we want more money for you too.
Hmm.
And just like you said, we know we need to keep money in the savings account so that in case of economic downturn, which we are definitely going to be having in this
Yep.
country anyway, that we're able to salvage, keep the practice afloat, keep making payroll. I've heard too many horror stories of practices where they weren't able to make payroll. And I'm like,
Yeah.
they were probably paying too much and that,
Yep.
it catches up with you after a while. But there has to be ways. I mean, and maybe I'm too optimistic and capitalism is going to thwart this, but there have to be ways of distributing resources, creating funds outside of the fee for service model
Hmm.
that make the practices both sustainable and make the employees feel like they're getting paid what they're worth.
Hmm. And I think that's a good point considering where we're at now is like, if you're listening to this or watching this, like something to think about is adding those other revenue streams because you can still do that in an economic downturn. I mean,
Hmm.
people are still signing up for my retreats. So I'm like, people need that. And so that is really an important point is something to think about because if you do that, then you will have more money coming in and you won't be so dependent on
Hmm.
insurance companies. And that will allow you to, I think, thrive better, to be more financially secure. And your employees hopefully will also be involved in that too. So, like, they'll like
Right.
doing that usually as well if they want to, right? Like offering groups or a workshop or whatever, a training. Like, then they get to do more than just one on one clinical work, which can be a nice addition also
And I
that
just
took
want
a
to
turn.
say, yeah, no, I think no, I think that's important and that's good. And I'll also say that stuff takes longer to build.
Yes.
So, as a
Yes.
practice owner and as employees, like this is why I believe that if employees better understood how the business works, they would understand where their efforts are going and what it
Hmm.
is building towards. Because there's almost nothing in small business that's like, oh, snap my fingers and then it
Yeah.
appears. I mean, that happened with PTO in Illinois because the state said, you must now provide PTO. And then everyone was like, oh shit. Okay, there it is.
Hmm.
And practices on the back end are scrambling to try to figure out how they're going to bridge that gap for the funds that, how are they going to pay for that? Um, so groups, workshops. I have a friend who, her practice, she's a woman, queer, and a person of color. And so she has the woman owned, queer owned, person of color like designation. And so
Hmm.
she gets grants and or
Yes.
uh, contracts to do trainings in organizations.
Hmm.
There are people who have special niches that have built like very focused training programs on certain things. Like, what else have you seen for group practices, other revenue streams?
I've also seen like contracts with schools and contracts with, and I actually was in the process of doing this right before I sold, so it didn't end up happening. But I was like talking to a company where we were basically kind of going to be like an EAP provider. So
Mm-hmm.
they were going to pay for their employee sessions for a certain amount. So you could do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can offer CEs or continuing education. You can, there was something else I was going to say and it went out of my head. You can teach wellness workshops. You could connect with people in your community to provide those types of workshops. You can do consulting. You can apply for grants. So, what you just kind of said, but like there are lots of grants out there
Mm-hmm.
for mental health stuff. So you can apply for
Mm-hmm.
those. You can do, this is what I was going to say, if you're able to, right? You can do like assessments, you can do immigration evaluations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was going to say one more, but it's kind of controversial and I don't even really know how I feel about it. So I'm not going to say that. But
Okay.
there's other different evaluations
Mm-hmm.
and assessments you
Mm-hmm.
could do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, right, right. Yeah, right. And yeah, this goes back to the idea of like if employees because I always go back to like if I'm the practice owner and I heard you say that, I'm going to feel even more burdened and put upon knowing how much work that takes. And
Yes.
this is where I want to create more distribution of responsibility within practices, which then can increase like uh, um, what's the word I'm looking for? You can make more money if you have more responsibility, right?
Hmm.
So, like, if there's somebody in a practice, an employee who's like, I want to start doing assessments for immigration or whatever it is, then like you can then take the lead on this as a project,
Yeah.
right? And then you can get paid extra money for this because you're bringing in extra revenue, and it's diversified work because that's what I keep hearing from people. They're like, it's too hard for me to see 20 clients a week. I get really stressed out about having that burden. So if we can diversify the work that people are doing, I think people would be willing to work differently
Yeah.
because it's not about working more, but to be honest, like if we are only seeing 20 people a week, we're only working 20 to 25 hours a week. That's not a full-time job. There's no other
Hmm.
industry in which that would be considered
Yeah.
full-time. And I understand the burden because seeing 20 clients a week is a lot different than sitting behind a desk for 40 hours tippity typing on a keyboard.
Yep. Exactly. And oh shit, there was something you said that I wanted. Oh, like you said, this is what it was. Like now, start now or before
Yeah.
now because these things take time. And I see, speaking of social media, a million posts all the time anonymously of like,
Hmm.
I'm burnt out, I'm struggling, I want to make more money, I want to do this, I'm a group practice owner, we're struggling, we need to make more money. And you can't just snap your fingers and it will happen
Yeah.
overnight. It takes time.
Yep.
There's really no passive income except for, I guess, investments, which you're not going to make any money on right
Definitely
now.
right now.
But you know what? The stock market is on sale, so there you could think of it like that.
Hilarious. Yeah, buy now, right? Oh my God.
Yes. Because these things take time. You
Yeah.
can't, like, even with immigration evaluations, I took the training for that in like 2020 because that was like a Hail Mary. I was like, maybe I'll do this and I won't be burnt out anymore.
Mm,
And you still have to market them. Do you think
right,
people are just gonna like
right,
come calling you and be like, "Oh yeah, I need to do this." Like you need to market it and you still need to
right,
build it. But people that have already done that, they do have a stream of those coming in and it
right.
can be very lucrative. So you need to build that stuff beforehand. And I
Yeah.
think group practice owners slash therapists in general, of course, depending on the person, but what I see a lot is like very narrow focused and
Hmm.
like very in the moment and
Yeah.
like need to expand, think bigger, think outside the box, and think of the future and be consistent.
I think that's a really, really good point. And I think like one of my critiques of us as a whole is that we're very fearful. Therapists
Yes.
in general are very fearful. And I think that you're right that it's tied to this like I'm focused on what's happening right in front of me right now instead of thinking bigger, looking at patterns, looking at history. I find it so interesting that, since I've been a practice owner, I've noticed the same conversations come up on Facebook over and over and over again. And it's like, where is the collective wisdom that has been built, right?
Hmm.
You cannot do 1099s in your practice. Like,
Hmm.
it has to be W-2s, but every fucking week somebody is
Yep.
posting and they're like, I'm just going to bring a couple 1099s on. And it's like, we have already collectively created this like wisdom. And there are people out there like you and Maureen Werbach and other people who are really helping people build their practices. But why aren't therapists like looking for that? There's something that gets in the way of accessing the support that's been built that's there.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
This is an annoyance of mine. Because I agree with you. And I was actually talking to somebody about this earlier, particularly about Facebook groups in general, is like, again, it's like created that whole thing where it's like, just tell me what to do, build me a business
Mm-hmm.
plan, tell me how to do it, send me your employment contracts. Does
Right.
anybody have employment contracts they're willing to share?
Right.
No. Because that shit is expensive
Yeah.
and it needs to be unique. Because when you hire somebody,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? There's risk and they can fucking sue you. And
Yep.
when they sue you, you can't, I mean, I guess you can, but I think you're going to look irresponsible if you say,
Right.
hey, I got this on the internet. Here's
Right.
my contract.
Right.
That
Right.
some stranger sent to me and I decided to use it to hire somebody.
Right.
Like, I think it just has created this space of just give it to me, instant gratification. Why can't you just give it to me? I
Mm.
want it now and I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to search for it. I just want it to be easy and I want it to be handed to me.
Why are we doing that? Like I want to be because I really want to come up with a generous
Yeah.
understanding of why. And I mean, I the thing that comes to me most readily is it is fucking hard to be alive right now.
Yeah, it is. Hmm.
If and I've got a friend who's like kind of rebuilding her life and is making a decision about like, do I really try to dig in and build my practice or do I want to just go get a job?
Yeah.
And and what I told her straight up, I was like, if this, if what was happening now was happening in 2014 when I started building my practice, I never would have made it. It is such a different time right now. There's so many more demands and there's a lot more scrutiny right now, I think, on practice owners and capitalism and the process and like how we interact with all of it that I think I would have like opted out really quickly. So
Yeah.
I just want to say that for people who are out there trying to do it right now, can we can we can we recognize that want for ease and honor that within ourselves, but not put that on other people? Because it's expensive to do this right. And
Yeah.
I don't have any ill will against people who do this to make more money. I benefited from that myself. And if that is the only reason that you're doing this, I just don't think that it's not gonna end up being equitable for you or your
Hmm.
staff. Because this really is like you have to spend a little money to make money
Hmm.
business, and there's nothing easy about this. And being more honest with ourselves, I think would be really helpful in being able to show up in a way that's more generous with the people we're interacting with too.
Yeah. It's interesting too because I've seen like just your comment about like making more money. I've seen a lot of posts lately too where again, I kind of thought we all knew that.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of people be like, I'm full, I'm just gonna bring on a couple contractors. I have a wait list, and
Right.
then they do, and then they can't get those people full and they're
Right.
upset and it's taking time and it's like, yeah, we've been saying this. I don't know like how else we can say it, but it's out there. That
Right.
information is definitely out there. And the profit margins in group practice are small. I
Yeah.
remember my friend who's in a different industry, also an entrepreneur. She was like my business coach and she was reviewing my books with me. And she was like, your profit margin should be like 30%. I was like, no,
Our
that
payroll
ain't
is like
happening.
75%,
Yes.
like, and that's just normal for the
Yeah.
commission fee for service based businesses.
Yep, it is.
Hmm.
And so,
Hmm.
like, if you think that you're going to make more money, I mean, people can. I've seen it where people are like, I don't know how they do it, but they're like, we're paying people 25 bucks an hour and they are having these much larger profit margins. But again, it's like, does that align with your own values?
Right.
That's what BetterHelp does.
Right.
So,
Right. Well, and if we really, you were saying earlier, I think this was probably our conversation before we started recording, but like, how do we stay in alignment with our values and not push people away? But like, one of the things that we have to get really clear on is like, we can't have it both ways, right? We
yeah.
can't be out there as therapists saying that we value equity, we value all of these things, and yet we're practice owners who are trying to do it quick and easy and
Hmm.
cheap. That's that's really objectifying the people who have already done it and devaluing again this collective wisdom that a lot of us have gathered over the years. Like,
Yeah.
God bless Maureen and Group Practice Exchange for all of the hard work that she put in. And I'm really excited for her to be able to reap the benefits of that, all of that hard work. And
Hmm.
like, she has made it accessible for people to get it for a really low price. And still some therapists are like, well, that's too expensive. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's really objectifying and dehumanizing. And you can't dehumanize your own people and say that you want equity for others.
Right.
That's out of alignment.
It is. Your actions need to be what you say they are. They need to
Right.
line up. And I know I've heard that too, where people are like, $99 a month. And I'm like, do you know that the group practice exchange is like a gold mine? But
Right.
people don't want, I think that's the other thing is like, they just want somebody to come in and do it for them.
Right.
And I know that right now, it is hard to be alive. We are all burnt out. And I think that that's fine. But like, honor that. And
Right.
you don't have to do more then. Like, if you are in that season, do less or just
Yeah.
keep the status quo. Like, that's also fine. And I also fantasize sometimes about getting a job because I'm like, oh,
Right.
I would just get a paycheck every week. I mean, I would be miserable, so I would never do it. But the idea of like, I would just
Hmm.
like have money, the same amount direct deposited
Right.
every Friday, and I would have paid time off and a 401k. I'm like, that kind of doesn't sound too bad some days.
Right. Right. And it's a trade-off. And I guess that's the other thing I would say to employees too is you have the option to choose, do you want to work in community mental health or treatment centers and get a salary? Or do you want the flexibility that comes with private practice, but also you need to know that there's more risk there?
Yep.
Those are choices that, like, my friend Andy Baumgartner, who runs Rowan Tree, we're gonna do a training at some point where she's going to compare the apples and oranges to help employees
Oh.
understand when you are going out to look for a job. Here are some of the questions that you need to ask so that you can really know the difference between what you're looking at and what it's actually going to be at the end of the day. Because truthfully, I really think it's a practice owner's job when you're interviewing somebody to say, hey, have you thought about, how you're going to like bridge the gap for yourself while you build up your caseload?
Hmm.
But a lot of employers are not doing that because they're desperate to hire. There's just so much shit going on. And we could talk about this
Yes,
forever,
I
but
know.
I think we should probably end here. Do you want to tell people where they can find you and all of the wonderful things you're doing in the world?
Yes, that's a nice way of putting it. I'm easy to find because of my name. So my website is just GabrielleJuliano.Villani.com. I'm on Instagram at GJV Consulting. My TikTok, my YouTube, my LinkedIn, or just my name. If you want to come to Costa Rica with me in November, there's 2 spots left. And
They'll be
if you
gone
need
by the time
help,
this airs. I know it.
I know, I hope so.
Yeah.
They've been moving quickly the past month, but I've been really focused on that.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you need help with Medicare or Medicaid consulting, that's the other thing I do, and it's just Medicare Consulting for Therapists.com.
Amazing. Always lovely to talk to you and share space with you. Yes, I love that we got connected online. We've never met in person, but I consider you a friend.
I consider you a friend too, and in this season of my life, there have been some people that moved away, and that's fine because it has
Yeah.
made space for more people like you who are more in alignment with who I want in my life and the kind of people that I need around me. So thank you for being one of them.
Well, thank you.